That time. City News, City News. What's happening in your city? City News, City News. City News, City News. You got love for your city? City News, City News. City News, City News. City News, City News, City News, City News. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of City Views. My name is Jacques Williams, and I am your host for this, let's just say, rather interesting look at the events and activities that are happening not only in Torrington, but in the region. As you can see, I'm pretty much going solo tonight. Melissa and Weibo are both partaking in other various activities. Weibo is celebrating his anniversary with his lovely wife, Pam, and we want to wish them the happiest of anniversaries. And Melissa is traveling and taking on some new possible activities. So we just want to wish her a safe and prosperous journey, and we hope to see him back here in the studio real soon. I will be taking off next week to take care of a little business of my own. So I'll be returning the second week in July. And Weibo will let me know who will be on the show at that particular time, as he's just taken over the scheduling for guests on the show. It is interesting, though, that I am here with you by myself because we are completing the 1-year anniversary that I've been hosting the show. And I want to thank Sam Slaby for inviting me to take over the hosting duties here on City Views. And it's been an honor and a pleasure doing it. And so far, after the first year, I think that we've been able to reach a few of our goals, but we're looking for bigger and better things to offer you in year 2. So keep your eyes and ears open for further details, and I'll definitely bring you in on that. And as always, we want to thank the sponsor of City Views, Toth Insurance Agency. Thank you so much for your generosity and support. We couldn't do it without you. And we also want to thank Catherine Pezzi, as always, for our little cups here. Our cup runneth over, Catherine. But we appreciate you all looking out for us and doing what you can to help make the show be the best that it can be. Now, normally when my co-hosts are here in the studio, we go over our weekend review. However, since they're not here, we're still going to go over the weekend review because this weekend was loaded with great stuff happening. And I want to start it out by giving a big shout out to my friend and colleague, Darcy Anderson Abbott, for her 3rd annual Still River Music Festival. It was a fantastic day of music in the city of Riverton, and hats off to Darcy and her volunteers for really putting an excellent show together. 14 bands, and all of them came to please. I could go on mentioning the individual bands and their performances, but just keep your eyes and ears open for future updates on, I think, what's going to be the 4th annual Still River Music Festival. This year's festival is dedicated to the memory of singer-songwriter Joey Sexton, and it was a very sentimental tribute, to say the least, Joey was a great friend of ours, and unfortunately, by situations that were out of his control, things didn't turn out the way we expected them to. However, we want to thank Darcy for being so generous in making that gesture, and also for being there for Joey during his very, very difficult days. So that's what community is all about. We try to take care of each other as best we can. Also, we did have the second annual International Make Music Day, NWCT. And for the most part, we got a real good vibe back from the participants, and they're looking forward to the third annual. There obviously are going to be some adjustments that we're going to consider making to make the event more robust, and so that it puts more emphasis on the musicians and the venues. Connecticut was the first state in the nation to recognize International Make Music Day, and for all intents and purposes, it was a very, very welcomed event. The weather worked out for us. Eventually started off a little rough, but things got going, and once the music started playing, that was all she wrote. So very cool weekend here in the city of Torrington and in the surrounding areas, and we're just getting started. So we want to fill you in on that, and hopefully you guys can start taking part in some of these activities as they come up. Also, tonight we're going to be resuming our special segment, What's Cooking with Michelle Cook. A couple of weeks ago, they just ended their session, so she's going to be bringing us some more details on possibly another session that might be taking place in regards to tolls. But we're going to be discussing some of the bills that passed and some of the language that went into those bills. And feel free, as always, to call and ask questions. We do welcome that. Also, on today's show, our special guest, Mr. Michael Menard, the Executive Director of LARC. And we've already had a little brief conversation about the great things that LARC is doing, so I'm very, very excited about bringing Michael out and introducing him to you, our viewing audience. So, with that said, we're going to take a slight break, and then we're going to come back with Michael. So call all your friends and neighbors, tell them, catch the view, City Views, on your local cable access Altice Channel 5. We'll be right back.
Viking, Packer, Viking, Viking.
Red state, blue state, vegan.
Carnivore.
We come from different places.
Uptown.
Downtown.
Optimist. Cynic.
We come to different conclusions.
Half empty.
Half full.
But when we live united, we create real, lasting change in the building blocks of life. The education, income, and health of our communities,
Live.
our families,
United.
even the person next to us.
Live united.
Real change won't happen without you. So give, advocate, volunteer, live united. Sign up at liveunited.org.
The pain will not control us. It will never break us, define us, or keep us still. Because arthritis can't beat us if we beat it first. In the fight against arthritis, you need a weapon. What's yours? Visit the Arthritis Foundation at fightarthritispain.org.
Welcome to Fogels.
Beautiful, isn't it?
You expect options everywhere else. Why not with your medical treatment? Talk with your doctor to explore all your options and find what's right for you. Visit ahrq.gov.
Getting closer to nature can get you closer to your family.
go to discovertheforest.org.
And welcome back. And before we go any further, I need to acknowledge Doug is Mr. Producer. He can take 2 minutes and make it last a lifetime. If you were able to see exactly what goes on off camera, you would be as amazed as I am in how he gets everything situated and in order. Amazing. That's why I call him Dougie Fresh. It don't get better than that because he's the best. We'll talk about college football later, Doug, won't we? Okay. Nonetheless, I am so very pleased tonight to bring to you our guest for City Views, Mr. Michael Menard, Executive Director of LARC. Michael, how are you?
All right, Jacques. How are you? Nice
very
to see
well,
you.
very well. Thank you for coming out tonight and spending
invite.
time with us here on City Views.
Gladly, yeah.
Michael is the Executive Director of LARC, and we've had an opportunity to discuss a few things. But before we get into the conversation, I'm curious, Michael, who's your college team this year?
Well, I worked at UConn for 26 years, so I'm supposed to say UConn on all fronts.
I was just making sure that was solidified there.
Yeah,
okay.
I'm also supposed to occasionally say they're rebuilding, right? I think that's the two things we rebuilding. I can say that now. I've retired from UConn, but
they're going back into the Big East.
They are. That's exciting. I think people seem genuinely excited. I had friends calling me, and that's pretty big news. Although football is going to be looking for a home, so that's a challenge.
It takes decades to build
a
football program. You look at those teams in the SEC and the Big Ten, man, and they got 100,000, 110,000, going every weekend to those games, and it just didn't happen.
Attendance has been rough there, but it's a great school, really extraordinary institution. They'll pull it back around. They will. They will. I have faith.
Now, the basketball program. Big East basketball was like, it didn't get any better. Especially when you had the big battles with Syracuse and UConn and Georgetown and Seton Hall and Boston College and the Red Storm and
there are so many pressures on these schools now. Financial pressure. You want to please donors. You want to get the maximum exposure. So you're always looking for that kind of deal. It's a complicated landscape.
Now, does it concern you a little bit that they're getting a little mission creep? Because I mean, if you're trying to create an example for the model student athlete, how do you do that with priorities being somewhat askewed as they are?
Well, and they take pride. So I worked with the counseling program for intercollegiate athletics, and they worked really hard to make sure athletes got a good education there. They did. So I think folks were genuinely proud of the academic progress, and I'm not an expert in that by any means, and I've been gone from there a few years, and I hadn't worked with those folks since I was at the Storrs campus. But folks really took great pride in the progress of athletes, and consistently had rock stars graduating with as athletes. So hats off to folks, young people who can be athletes at that high a competitive level and pursue an undergraduate degree and succeed at both. So
I've always admired the student athlete.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's tough.
Absolutely,
it's not easy.
is tough. Yeah.
So, Michael, you're here today to discuss your company.
Yep.
We'll talk a little bit about the industry.
Agency. I know my folks would say, no, we're not a company, we're an agency.
True. And I'm still learning the vernacular.
Me too. I've only been at LARC, it'll be 2 years in July. So, but because the business model is a complicated one, but for these are grassroots organizations, founded by families, and in the early '60s nationally, when there were no services for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities, and so, they've grown up as agencies. So much of the work that we do at LARC is just it's advocacy work, it's unpaid work. You do a lot of work that you do because it's the right thing to do.
Correct.
So
what brought you to LARC? What was your interest?
Well, I had run the UConn-Torrington campus about halfway through my UConn career, and I didn't think I would be at UConn 26 years, but I was. And they sent me here to the Northwest Hills. I didn't know anything about Torrington, and I loved this community my first time here. I really did. It was a real no-nonsense place. Folks rolled up their sleeves. They collaborated just naturally. And I felt really, really welcomed here those years I spent at Torrington. They asked me to go to Hartford, West Hartford, and then downtown, help build the new downtown Hartford campus, which I did gladly, although with some degree of regret because I was leaving Torrington. I met some wonderful people in Hartford, and it was a big project. I had some fun, but I was getting tired. The university was a wonderful place, but it was becoming quite a bit more corporate, it seemed to me. And I would look across the table. We needed to build a lot of partnerships to open that campus, and I was working with a lot of municipal leaders and nonprofit providers and agency heads, and they seemed to be more joyful, frankly. They just did. And I thought, well, maybe sometimes have a tendency to be a bit naive about these things, but they seemed to be really passionate about their work. I knew that they weren't making big money, but they seemed passionate. And then I had an opportunity to do something different. And I thought, well, in a perfect world, I would do some nonprofit work. And in a really perfect world, I would get back up to Torrington as a community. And I was really, really fortunate. I had a few offers on the table and a few places that were courting me. The board of LARC, I reached out to them when Larry Casella, who had been my predecessor, who had been there for decades, a wonderful guy. I knew him when I was here my first time. And I applied for the position, and the board saw fit to hire me, a person with no experience in this particular field, lots of leadership experience and lots of management experience, and I had run large, complex organizations before. And once they hired me, I thought, uh-oh, what am I going to do next? But I joined an agency that I knew had a really strong reputation in the community. I quickly discovered that my leadership team and at every level of the organization, just extraordinary skill and passion. I've got a bench at the leadership level at this agency of individuals with such expertise. They've been here, some of them for decades. And so I didn't need to bring expertise to the equation. And I promised them I wouldn't micromanage because I would be incapable of micromanaging. But that I would be there to sort of come in with fresh eyes, think about ways we could do things differently, look at structure of the agency and ways to integrate it a bit more effectively and fully into the fabric of the community, to not break things that were working well, but to sort of work with them to tinker with things that could be done better. And I've been having a really, really wonderful time. I found work that is joyful. I had a colleague of mine who I had worked with in Torrington say if you went to LARC, and she had been on the board before, if you went to LARC, you would drive home every day thinking you were doing the Lord's work. I remember that phrase for a long time. And she was right. She was. You just feel like this is work that's meaningful, it's hard. I have such extraordinary respect for the folks on the front line who do this work on a daily basis. They do this with such a degree of professionalism and grace and kindness and passion and compassion. I mean, it really is humbling to see. And they don't do it for huge money. That's not why they're in this field, obviously. But they do this for reasons that have nothing to do with money and everything to do with what I thought I was seeing in Hartford.
Right.
Passion and purpose and conviction and knowing you're doing something meaningful. And that's not to disparage my work at UConn, which I enjoyed greatly and was immensely rewarding and fulfilling. But it was a new chapter for me, and I'm just having a really wonderful time.
Now, what skills do you think that you're bringing to the table that could help perpetuate LARC's mission?
Well, I think I'm good at looking at structure. I think I'm good at looking at the agency and looking at where there are discrepancies or where there are imbalances or where workload needs to be shifted. Looking my eyes aren't as fresh as they were 2 years ago, but with eyes that are newish at the agency. And thinking, does this make sense? We're doing something here, should we keep doing that in that way? Or is this something that really is crept outside our core mission? This is happening at a time when the state Department of Developmental Services, DDS, the agency that funds most of our programming, is asking us to be entrepreneurial and innovative and to think differently. There are new models emerging nationally and internationally, and certainly the state of Connecticut is adopting those models about community inclusion. And so for my team, they're very kind and they're gracious, but they'll sometimes say, this is all coming around, and there are no new models. But and they're right, I know they are, but these are the words we hear and the things we need to do. So I'm a person who likes to tinker like that, and I really love the challenge of thinking about something that could be different, a little less staid. I think one thing that, because many of my roles at UConn over the years, I was director of educational outreach and community partnerships. I did some work as well in community engagement in the city of Hartford, is building relationships between institutions and the outside community. I think that's one thing LARC could do a better job of. We receive really extraordinary support from the community in terms of funds and in terms of just generosity of time and energy. The business community up here has been extraordinarily supportive of us. We have a lot of individuals working in settings that make us the envy, I think, of many of our colleagues in the state, because the business community up here has been so supportive. So we're doing some good work there, but we need to do a better job of integrating ourselves into the fabric of the community. So we're looking at doing that and building partnerships there. We also need to work on, and we've hired a new director of development and marketing. We need to do a better job of telling the community what we do and how we do it, because some of the things that used to happen at an agency like this no longer happen. And we do so many things. We have a really broad portfolio of programs and offerings. It's hard to sort of merge them into a compelling, cohesive, and narrowly focused story. So we're working on that as well. I like the challenge of that. I like the narrative challenge of that. And we're looking at ways to rethink the way we bring staff on board, the way we engage them in the affairs of the organization. I almost said corporation. Or business.
I was going to catch you on that.
I wasn't going to do
say
it.
corporation?
I wasn't going to do it. And ways to give them feedback that's helpful to their professional growth, and engage them in ways that allow us to retain them once we've trained them, and once they have experience. How can we let them know they matter? So I love doing that. And UConn did a really good job of figuring out ways to sort of incentivize work, even with high salaries, relatively speaking. So it's important for us, and that's been sort of, staff hear me say that all the time. We need to treat folks well once we bring them on board.
Absolutely.
We need to do whatever we can to make them feel like this is the best place they could possibly be, using their skills and passions and hard-won skills, hard-trained skills.
So what is your mission at LARC? Your mission statement?
Our tagline is community for all, which I find simple, and I like that, particularly at a time when we're talking nationally and as a state and as a private provider about inclusion. It means what it says, and it means that everybody counts, everybody matters, and everybody has equal value and plays a meaningful role. We have a broader mission statement, which I'm certainly going to forget right now, but it does talk about providing the supports, the necessary supports and services to allow each individual we serve to live his or her best life, and with all the necessary safety in place, but also with the dignity of risk. It's a phrase you hear sometimes in disability services, and providing opportunities for them to grow just like all human beings want. We were talking about that in the parking lot. Individuals, we all have aspirations. We all want to matter. We all want to be safe. We all want to be cared for. We all want to experience life. We all want to take our unique skills and abilities and use them in ways that provide us some degree of satisfaction and ideally make a difference in the world.
Absolutely.
So those lines of demarcation, I mean, to my mind, they're the same things we did when we were trying to educate young people at the university. The same thing. You're trying to just, in some ways, that's what service always is about, trying to find ways to sort of bring down barriers to allow individuals to prosper. It's that simple in a way. So in a way, that's our mission. The work that entails and the broad array of programs and services we provide belies that mission, because it's a very complicated agency in terms of what we do.
I was just getting ready to touch on your programs, and I was going to ask you if you could maybe cite a few of those programs where the community can actually engage either through giving or through participation.
Sure. Well, we have we serve about 200 individuals a day, a little over 200 individuals a day. We run 6 residential 24-hour operation group homes in the region. We run a day services program, 3 sites now. We have a 3rd site we just started up, where individuals are there for part of the day. They can be doing recreation, they can be doing any number of things. Increasingly, we're trying to open those doors up, and Tom Stanton, who's our Director of Day and Vocational Programs, a great guy. He's working with his team to figure out how to open the doors and get folks out into the community. So welcoming us into your venue in the community, and folks really have been extraordinarily generous to us as an agency. We have a very robust vocational program. We work with about 25 employers in the region, and we have about 100 plus individuals who work in vocational programs, doing work, meaningful work. And that is an area that has received a lot of attention, both at the state and national levels, to increase the viability of those types of programs. We do in-home supports, where we have a program where we send individuals to the homes of individuals. Durational support. It's not 24/7 support, but they might need a few hours a week, or they might need a few days a week, or they might need the weekends. We have a recreation program that we're pretty proud of. Robin runs a recreation program on nights, weekends. Seemingly she's always working, getting folks out into the community on trips, sometimes overnight trips, sometimes longer trips, sometimes day trips. We have a school to community transition program for high school students, 17 to 21-year-olds, or 18 to 21-year-olds, who we teach them life skills. We work with the area schools. We provide life skills so that they, again, can go out into the community. I was just at the graduation last week, and one of our individuals already has a full-time job, Adam. We're pretty proud of that. We're about to start up a new program this fall. We were one of the few sites in Connecticut selected through the competitive grant process to start up a project search site. That's a program that was founded in Cincinnati about 30 years ago by an individual named Erin Riley. She's been out to visit us a few times now. She worked as an emergency room nurse at University of Cincinnati Children's Hospital, and thought, I see a lot of IDD individuals here, but I don't see them working here, and we're a really big place, and certainly we must have the means to change that. And so she started on a mission to figure out ways to take tasks in the hospital setting initially, and break them down into meaningful steps, because under the pretense that everyone can learn with the right set of tools and with the right approach. And she started on her way. Now she has 500 and some odd sites internationally. They're not even all in this country anymore. Connecticut had one site until last year. That was at Favar in Canton. And when I first got here, I started visiting my colleagues, and I spoke to Steve Morris there, and he was saying, this is a really cool program. You should be looking at it. We did. We started to get excited about it. DDS saw fit to incentivize a few agencies to apply, and they provided the startup funding. So there are now 3 of us, in addition to Favar, who are starting our programs this fall. We're very excited about that. So that'll be an internship program for individuals. The age range, we're still hammering out the particulars, 18 to roughly 25, who would do a 9-month tour of duty with us, and a variety of different sites. And that's really intended to get folks out into the community after employed. So that's exciting to parents who are looking for, what does my son or daughter do next? So we're pretty excited about that. That's a startup venture for us, and DDS is excited to have a few more of those programs. I'm probably missing a few things. Our camp, how can I miss our camp? Catherine would be upset. So our camp just started yesterday. They had beautiful weather yesterday, not so beautiful today. Camp Mo is it's just a wonderful place. We're really proud of Camp Mo. One of the things that I was very excited about when I came here was the camp. It was new to they had just purchased. The board had just purchased the property a few years before I arrived. They had a big capital campaign. We've really made the place beautiful, and Catherine and her team just do remarkable work.
How long has Camp Mo been in operation?
Catherine could answer that better than I can, but I bet as long as she's been here. So it was before it was Camp Mo, it was Camp LARC, it was
right.
Camp Tremunca. She would know the lineage. When she shares the history of that organization, yes. it goes way back.
It's 3 or 4 decades, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Decades. Yep. Yeah. So
which is a notable feat.
Absolutely, it is. Yeah.
Yep. To keep any.
Yep.
Program
absolutely
sustained for that period of time.
And they have a really robust Facebook page. Every day they post a picture of the day, and they keep the community informed. So if you're interested,
they got a little T-shirt too.
Yeah,
I don from time to time.
And I think there was this one time I saw a green sign on the side of the road as well. There must be hundreds of them. I mean, it is amazing.
Yes, it is.
It is amazing. They're everywhere.
So we are here this evening with our special guest, Michael Menard from LARC. Do we have a phone call coming in? I thought we might have for one moment there. But we're going to take a slight break, and then we're going to come back and let's talk about LARC's LARC in the community.
Great. Okay.
And some of the collaborative efforts that you have going, and how LARC is preparing for the future in terms of taking care of the people that you support.
Great.
Okay?
Sure.
So you guys stay tuned, and we're going to be back with more right here on City Views.
Really?
Buzz, what's up, man? You left some leaves burning out here.
Yeah, I just came in just for a second.
Come on, man. If it's too hot to touch, it's too hot to leave. You could torch the whole neighborhood.
It's a good point there, Smokey.
9 out of 10 wildfires are caused by humans.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Welcome to my block party. Glad you can make it.
The only triple doubles you get come with fries.
Last time you blocked someone, you were online.
I can do this all day. Your moves are just gay.
Using gay to mean dumb or stupid, not cool.
Not cool.
Not in my house, not anywhere. It's not creative, it's offensive to gay people. And you're better than that.
Kickflip 6 stairs takes determination. So will getting into college. I've got what it takes. So do you.
Clean kitchen surfaces, utensils, and hands with soapy water. 1 in 6 Americans will get sick from food poisoning this year. Keep your family safer. Check your steps at foodsafety.gov.
And we're back, ladies and gentlemen, and you are getting ready to experience must-see reality TV. On the phone is my co-host, who I normally refer to as my most capable co-host. However, tonight, he is not capable, and we're going to discuss it right. Uh-oh. I thought we were going to discuss it. It looks like Wilbur just, he just dodged a bullet. I'll see you when you return, man. Nonetheless, have a great time in Foxwoods, okay? All kidding aside, enjoy yourself. Enjoy your night off. Don't even think about the fact that I'm here by myself interviewing this gentleman of such high esteem with no help from anyone. Just me. Okay? All right.
Nice job, Shaq.
So, Michael, one of the things that I want to discuss with you is because your predecessors, Larry Casella, Christina Emery.
Yeah, wonderful.
They brought me into the LARC family in a very unique way with my music.
Yeah, and the dances.
I got to tell you, man, those were some of the most uplifting experiences that I've had in entertainment since I've been doing it. And I guess the thing that excited me the most was the reaction from the people that you support. I mean, okay, it's nice to be treated like rock star royalty, okay? I gotta admit, it was good for my ego. But they know their music.
They do.
They know their music.
I don't dance, but now I have no choice but to dance.
Well, yeah.
At the quarterly dances.
Absolutely.
You have to dance. They don't let anyone not dance.
And some of the requests
Especially
I'm like, what you talking about, Willis?
Yeah.
And they're like, just play it.
Their dancing is very important. It is. Yeah.
But,
the joy in that room, it's amazing.
But your predecessors set such a high bar.
Yep, absolutely.
For the delivery of services, for the level of community engagement.
Absolutely.
Talk a little bit about that and how you plan on taking LARC through to the next millennium.
Well, it's interesting. So one of the concerns I had when I accepted this position was I had gained a reputation at the university for being a guy who was sent in to fix messes oftentimes. That was often the case. Something would be on its side, whether it was a program at stores or a campus, and that was hurting, and they would say, well, send him in. Menard's probably not smart enough to say no, and I liked the challenge. And I knew LARC was a strong agency. It wasn't hurting at all. It had a really good reputation, and it had really good bones, and Larry was an extraordinary guy, and he built a really well-respected agency. I got to work with Christina in a number of capacities before I came to LARC. I think we were on TDC board together and the like, so I knew her a bit. I knew how great she was. And then I was fortunate enough that when I got there, she was still there as my director of development and marketing as well. She's gone on to do bigger and better things, and we look for opportunities all the time to collaborate with Primetime House because the future belongs to collaborators.
Right.
And Christine is wonderful to work with. So I didn't inherit an agency that was on its side.
Right.
But there are always ways to make anything better. That's always the case. And Larry worked with me in the transition. I will always be grateful to him. You know what a gentleman he is and how gracious he is. And he would say, well, it was hard for him. It would be hard for me. I've never had to do that in my role. I would just be hightailing it out and someone else would be there. But DDS wanted there to be a transition because I had no experience in the field, which made sense to me. And Larry was gracious enough to have provided that for me. But it was delicate for him because he would see me at some point making changes, sometimes visible changes, and he would say, and I was like, I know it was his baby, but and he would say, I know things are going to change, and I'm supporting you fully. And he was so incredibly kind and gracious about it. He was, but different eyes are going to see things differently. So like I said, I think some structural apparatus, we needed to provide some capacity around things like facilities. That we manage a lot of property, and it was not getting, and I was accustomed to a model where, as a campus director especially, I was managing lots of property. I wasn't personally, but I had a team to do that.
Correct.
And I got to LARC and I didn't have a team. And I thought, wow, we've got a lot of property to manage. So I think that helped to give some attention to sort of physical infrastructure. I would joke with folks, I could not show up for a week and things would be okay, but if the toilets don't work, we're in trouble.
Right.
So you have to value those things that are very important to an agency's well-being and to the well-being of the individuals there. So giving some attention to that. I think giving some attention to sort of more awareness of, I keep saying it, but structural apparatus. How does the agency, we're working on organizational charts. If somebody were to come in from the outside, could they tell you how the agency functions? Because it is a very complex enterprise.
Absolutely it is.
And so sometimes the visual manifestation of that helps you to first of all understand what it is you say you're doing, and then to look for places where what you say you're doing doesn't make sense. Can you move things? Maybe sometimes pieces, like a Jenga game, that's when you need to move this one out and put it over here, and you need to sort of rearrange. And I think any agency is always rearranging. What had been the case, I think, is that, and some of the historians on the staff, like Julie, our director of clinical, she's wonderful. She'll say, we just all rolled up our sleeves and did things, and that's true. So everybody had a piece of everything. And so for coming in from the outside, I thought, well, I need something that's a little simpler. So I'm going to take those two pieces from you, not because you're not good at them, but because I think they make more sense over here. And then I'll give you some new pieces, and we're sort of rearranging some of the chairs around that. And I think folks at first I think wondered why I was doing that, but I think they've grown to trust me that I'm not going to try to make things worse. I'm going to try to understand as well, to do things deliberately, sufficiently deliberately, so that I can understand what the rationale had been. But if the rationale was just I inherited it, then maybe it does have a better home here. We've changed a little bit of the leadership team. We just appointed Jan, our director of HR, because HR is a huge enterprise. We have over 150 staff. It's the single largest expense of our agency. That was being managed by my director of finance, Sarah Proud, who's wonderful, but it was too much to be in the hands of one person. So I needed that horsepower there. So that was a structural change that we effected just pretty recently as well. We're looking for areas where, in the middle of the organization especially, we're just about to roll out staff evaluations. That was a request from the board. I came from a highly structured environment at the university where there was a lot of that going on. There had been an informal arrangement around that, but we wanted a more formal arrangement. And not punitive, but ways to give folks at all levels of the organization constructive feedback so that they can grow and learn, and you build in, you force opportunities for that sort of conversation. In the process of rolling that out, what we're discovering is that there are bottlenecks. So there are some individuals who now have a lot of individuals who they need to supervise. That's always an opportunity to rethink the structure of that unit. You might want to subsume some of those individuals into this unit and break them out to make it more manageable. So I like the tinkering like that, and I think there's a lot of that to do, particularly as we embark on new ventures. Because we're going to have to build capacity for those new ventures. Where do they go? So they have to go in the hands of individuals, and I've asked a lot of my team, especially since I got there. They would tell you that. And what I said to them from the outset was that as I ask you to do more things, it's not fair of me to continue to ask you to do more without figuring out where to put some things that you currently do. So we need to think again about ways to put that, bury that deeper into the organization, and what happens simultaneously is that individuals have new opportunities at various levels of the organization to grow and to spread their wings and to learn how to manage projects and to have some autonomy and use their skills and passions to show you that they can do wonderful work too.
That's awesome. I think we're going to have a call here. We hopefully will be hearing from Michelle Cook for our What's Cooking segment. As soon as Doug gives me the okay. People call in, but they don't want to talk to me anymore. I don't know what's. Am I upsetting you guys, or I'm just. I guess my personality is not inviting enough.
Well, I'm still talking to you.
That's true.
So
that's
all
true.
All right, Shark. Don't take it personally.
Are we ready to go with Michelle? Okay. What's cooking?
Hey, how are you?
My long lost friend, how have you been?
Oh, your friend has been crazy busy like always. So I want to apologize now. I'm driving.
You want to apologize for what?
No, I'm apologizing. So if you hear my directions go off because I'm driving.
Oh.
Because I had a meeting in Wallingford and I'm on my way, out of there.
So I take it that you have a hands-free device?
Of course.
I'm just watching out for you, Michelle. Okay?
Of course I do.
Otherwise, I would have to ask you to pull over. Can you hear me?
There you go.
Okay. We have Michael Menard on the show tonight, Michelle, the executive director from LARC.
Michael Menard. How are you?
Michelle, how are you? Nice to hear your voice.
Nice to hear from you as well.
So, Michelle, you have survived this last session in the House. Give our listeners, our viewers, just a brief overview of how this last session went for you.
How it was for me overall, or how it was for us as a whole?
Well, we'll get to that in a little bit, but I want to know your thoughts first.
So I would say that for me, there was some things obviously that I wanted to do that didn't get finalized. It's rather disappointing, but there's always next session, and we go back to work on that. And I was happy with some of the things that we were able to get passed, and let constituents know that we heard them in some of their regards and some of their asks. At the same time, it was long and grueling, but at the still always, and you all know me well enough to go that it still humbles me to be able to do what I do and represent people at the State House. It's just an amazing opportunity, and I feel totally privileged and honored and humbled to be able to do that.
So when you're speaking of the sessions, what is the likelihood of there being another session to go into in regards to the discussion on tolls?
I don't know that as of yet. I know that we, first priority was we need to come back and do the bonding bill for school construction and some other things that we really need to do. There's communities that are out there relying on their ability to bond to do renovations to their schools and stuff like that. And I believe we have an obligation to get back there to do that. And I'm thinking that that'll happen the first few weeks of July. Well, probably second or third week of July, given the 4th of July and when it falls. I can't speak to the fact that we are going to go back and have a conversation in special session regarding tolls. I don't know if there's a complete appetite for that yet. And I think that we need to, I guess, just wait and see if the conversations that the governor's office is trying to have with folks are productive. It definitely has a mixed bag of feelings. And, and at the same time, it also has been misrepresented in a lot of ways. And I think that getting all the truth out, and you and I, we've spoken about that on this very show, about getting out the facts and not listening to all of the rhetoric, I guess you will.
Absolutely. Now, Michelle, I want to, if you could, talk to our viewers a little bit about the bonding process and how that works and how it relates to funding for municipalities, especially when it comes to school budgets.
So, I would say that we don't bond school budgets. I think that's extremely important. So we are not bonding education. We are bonding construction, and strictly construction. So you are not getting a bonding for like your educational cost sharing dollars or any of that. The bonding would strictly be, so, if Torrington came to us and said, hey, look, we need a new building. We need to, apply for this bond, and we need the state's help. That's where we would come in. And then what would happen is they know what they could bring to the table, and they would have to ask the state for money to help them achieve their goals on school construction. So things like that would be bonded. You also have, our 5 points in the amazing project that they're working on at the Yukon property. There's been a bond request to help move that along. But that's economic development. So it would not be about educational dollars specifically, but building in bricks and mortar kind of thing. So what would happen is they would apply. We would have to deem it necessary and appropriate. We have a bond committee. So your request for bonding would get put through that committee. It would either get approved or not approved, and then you have to take all of those requests, and the governor's office has to agree, and then you have to have a meeting from the governor's office. But school construction is for us. We have to allocate those dollars, and then they have to get back for approval.
That seems like quite a task for 169 towns.
It is, although I would say that when you're talking about building schools or art institutes, things like that, that we know that makes us a better state, that makes our communities better, and most people are willing to say, hey, look, that's traditionally our kumbaya moment.
Did you say kumbaya?
I
did. Excuse me.
we have them, contrary to what some might want to say.
Right. Well, but you know, Michelle, I know the what we were able to contribute to the legislative agenda basically was a statement of balance and stability.
Okay.
How are we going to come about this balance and stability when we have such imbalance in the parties? Do you see? Seriously? Do you see a way that we can decrease this divide?
I think that's got to be made on an individual, and I think all of that starts local, and then it goes regional, and then it goes statewide, and then it goes national. And I think that we have to, as we've always discussed in this, to take a step back and listen to the other person's point of view. And don't just say, oh, I'm not because I am this party or that party. Or, this party doesn't believe this and so I can't listen to that. We have to be more open-minded. And I think we do have the ability to bring back, not complete unity because there's always been a two-party system. But I think that we have to learn from what our founding fathers thought we needed and grow and build to where we are as a more current and modern nation and a more current and modern state. We have to decide that that's what we want to do. What are our priorities? Do we want to continue to be at each other's throat about things, or do we really want to take a step back and say, how do we improve this? Because the generations that are going to move past us, because as we all sit here and age at a more rapid rate than normal, is how I feel anyway, that we're going to be losing our opportunity to correct it. And then we're going to have to leave it to the next generation. And then if that generation doesn't fix it, then we're going to have to leave it to the next generation. And I really believe that the generation that is sitting there now is, that group that's 18, 19, 20 to 30, 32 years old, 35 years old, they see it totally. They're a much more accepting group. They're a much more willing group. They're a much more engaged group of fine young people that are really looking to change the trajectory.
How I hear what you're saying, Michelle, and what you're saying is very practical. But let's be honest. The philosophical divide is oftentimes demonstrated on these party line votes. And what I'm trying to understand is what philosophical differences do the parties have that are causing this toxic environment to be created? From your perspective, what's your assessment of that?
Well, I think that a lot of that's more national. I mean, granted, you've got, you have your fiscal conservatives, and then you have the stereotype of the leaning liberals and, tax and spend liberals and all of that. And I think that, there's
those are labels
on both.
Those are labels.
Right, that's what I was going to say. That, you have the extremes on all sides. And, try to find yourselves in the middle to figure out how we can all get along and work to the common good of it all. That's where your challenge is. And the finger pointing truly has to stop. And I think that we could all be better for that. We could all be better for taking a step back and, let's talk about what's truth in fact. And let's not talk about what we think might be or what have you. I think that's truly the dynamic of where we need to go. We do have some party line things here in the state, but if you take a look back at the way that people vote and the amount of votes that we take, the amount of things that are party line, granted, paid family medical leave was party line. I'm ashamed that that's where we are because, if you listen to the constituent base, the constituents said, we need this. Now, is that something for people to fall on? I mean, we had a 14-hour debate on whether somebody deserved to put in 0.5% of their paycheck into a paid family medical leave program. God forbid somebody got sick, that they could be able to take the time off if their job doesn't offer that to them. And it took the onus off of the business, and they don't have to pay for that either. But you know what I'm saying? So I think it's more philosophical differences. that really separates some of it, or fundamental.
Well,
and I don't know if that really answers your question, but you know, I don't know if there's a sound way to give you that answer.
Well, I think it starts with leadership, and once leadership sets that precedence, then I think you tend to have people that fall in line based on the fact that they're wanting to be more independent as opposed to being more partisan. However, that's just my own personal feeling. Michelle, we do have another call coming in. I'm not quite sure if we're going to be able to take it, but I do want to thank you for calling in, and it's been too long.
It's been a couple of weeks, but we were a little bit busy.
I do understand that, but it's so good to have you back.
I'm happy to be back. Thank you guys very much for always welcoming me.
No problem. We'll talk soon, Michelle.
All right. You all have a great evening.
Bye,
Thank
Michelle.
you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Good evening. You're on City Views.
Good evening. You're on City Views. Good evening, sir. How are you tonight?
Ray.
That's me, brother. That's me. I just listening to your conversation there with what's cooking.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wish you would call in earlier, because every time you call, it's like we're getting ready to put a wrap on the show, and you and I never get to really have a quality conversation.
Yeah. Well, I just wanted to make comments on Michelle there. I just think, listening to her talk is like listen to Lamont talk. It's the same thing.
Okay. I don't think Governor Lamont is quite as pleasant sounding as Michelle.
Well, the other thing is, if Nancy Pelosi and Mr. Schumer could get along with the President of the United States, I said, then we can really get something going on here. But right now, it's just like the Democrats, like the House here, with the Democrats with Michelle and Lamont and all this here. With Lamont, all he wants to do is force this down their throat about the tolls and stuff, and want him to go ahead and bid his way, to fall his way. But some people just don't have enough nerve to speak up and talk like I do. And I don't think Michelle has enough nerve to get up there and talk about it and tell them, look, we don't need tolls. But he just likes to go ahead and throw things down their throat and wants them to go ahead and pass the law about it. Just like this, like this thing for 15 to for the what do you call home leave when you for 15 days or for 12 days or 12 weeks. That's bull. Years ago, somebody took care of the kids. Now all of a sudden they want to take it out of my pay for this? That's bull.
Ray, unfortunately, Doug has just given me the finger, so we're going to have to put a wrap on it for tonight. But please call in earlier so we can have time to deliberate on these issues. Okay?
I will.
Okay, Ray.
I just don't like to call in when you're talking with your guest there. I don't want to be I don't want to interrupt them.
You can call in anytime, Ray. Okay?
All right, brother.
Thank you.
I'll call in earlier next Tuesday.
Appreciate it. I won't be here next Tuesday.
I know.
Oh my goodness! So Michael, thank you so much. I'm sorry we ran out of time, but
great.
We want to invite you back.
All right.
So we can talk more about the great things that LARC is doing.
Wonderful.
Okay.
All right.
And for all you tuning in tonight, thank you so much for doing so. We got to make a run of it, but don't forget, if it's happening in the city of Torrington, you can catch it on City Views. My name is Jacques Williams, your host, and we'll see you back in 2 weeks right here on City Views. What's happening in your city? City Views, City Views. City Views, City Views. You got love for your city? City Views, City Views. City